Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I thought we'd try and come up with my top 20 disco songs. Had a bit of debate with myself about the definition of disco, or whether I should call it dance tracks or stuff is good to dance to, but figured that would broaden the palette a bit too much and include all this modern dance music, which I'm not really into. So if I keep the definition as disco, almost by definition, it's kind of going to limit itself to the kind of period which is my favourite, or mostly anyway. And the records I've chosen are more or less all from my collection, or if they're not from my collection, they blooming well should be, and I'll rectify that gap because I noticed a couple of them are not in my collection, although I watch them regularly on YouTube and stuff. A couple of one-off singles don't happen to be in my collection, so forgive me for that. But and then a couple of bubbling under ones, or ones I didn't put on the list because I didn't think maybe they were strictly disco, although they're tremendous, got tremendous groove to them and kind of a disco groove. See what you think. I mean, so I've under that category I've got Sound and Vision from Bowie and Fame from Bowie, which nearly made the list, but I didn't know whether they qualified as proper disco. And then the other one, which is a bit of an oddball one, is the Pink Floyd single Another Brick in the Wall, which has kind of got that disco guitar going on, which probably part of the reason it was such a huge hit single. But again, at the end of the day, I decided probably it wasn't bona fide disco, so I left it off. So at number 20, and I'll show you the list when I'm finished, I've got Blame It on the Boogie from the Jackson 5, and I don't have this in my collection, so I'm going to have to pick up a compilation or something of the Jackson 5, because don't blame it on the sunshine, don't blame it on the moonlight, don't blame it on the good times, blame it on the boogie. It's just a classic. Put it up, play it loud. Great early song from them, with Michael Jackson singing the lead as a younger guy, obviously. Number 9, I've got I Feel Love from Donna Summer, and I just picked up the album, I remember, yesterday, but I've left it in the other room actually. But it's a great song, and I've got another further up the charts, another couple from Donna Summer which I probably prefer, but I Feel Love is hard to beat. You crank it up loud, it's got a great groove to it, and yeah, it's just a wonderful song, and I'm just recently getting into Donna Summer and some of her back catalogue, so that's good. Number 18, I do have in my collection. It's from Greatest Hits Volume 2, Elton, and it's the huge number 1 hit single he had with Kiki D in '76 called Don't Go Breaking My Heart. Pretty much bona fide disco song, crank it up loud, was presumably a favourite at the time. I'm not sure, I don't go to discos anymore, but I think if you went today you wouldn't get anything from the 70s or even the 80s, or if you're lucky you might get 2 or 3. Most of the clubs seem to play modern stuff these days, so not that I went to discos before much, you understand, but anyway. Number 17 is another one not in my collection. I don't have any Bee Gees. I do have Spirits Having Flown on vinyl somewhere, but I don't have any greatest hits, and I don't have Saturday Night Fever, where I think did this come from Saturday Night Fever? Staying Alive. It's an earlier song, it's from '75, so maybe it wasn't on Saturday Night Fever, coming to think about it, although Night Fever was. I'm not sure which album it featured on, presumably obviously it's on the greatest hits, but don't have it in my collection, but check out the video, it's a good video for this as well. Number 16, we've got Love's Unkind, which is also from I Remember Yesterday from Donna Summer, which I have in the next room, so I can't show it to you. It's one of my all-time favourite singles. Objectively speaking, maybe it's not the best single in the world, it's quite repetitive, but I love the arrangement, I love the words, and it came out around about Christmas '77, same time as I was starting to get into music and buying singles, although I didn't buy a single at the time of it, or did I have it? Maybe I did have it and I lost it. Can't quite remember. Number 15, we've got a track from Night Flight to Venus from Boney M, and I've chosen Brown Girl in the Ring just because it's so joyous and uplifting and so catchy, and it was actually the B-side of Rivers of Babylon, or maybe it was even a double A side, but I could have chosen Rivers of Babylon as well. But I've chosen Brown Girl in the Ring. It's a real happy-go-lucky song for the dance floor, and for qualifies as disco. Number 14, I wasn't sure if this qualified as disco. It's an early disco song if it was, ahead of its time, and it's Superstition from Stevie Wonder with that great riff at the beginning. And I think to all intents and purposes it does qualify as disco, and I think it was played a lot in the 70s and people danced to it, so that's enough for me. And it's just one of Stevie Wonder's greatest songs of all time, and one of the great dance songs of all time. Number 13 I don't have in my collection. There's a song from Shirley & Co. from I think 74 called Shame, Shame, Shame. This has a great groove to it. As a song it may not be any great shakes, but it's got a great disco groove to it, very catchy, and great female vocal from, I guess, Shirley. Number 12, I've got Wings' disco single from 79. So at the time, a lot of people were jumping on the disco bandwagon, and some of them did better than others. I thought Wings did a very creditable effort with this song, backed with Daytime, Nighttime Suffering, and I think Paul's bass is hypnotic. I remember dancing to this in clubs at the time or shortly thereafter, and he was jumping on the bandwagon, but I think he did a good job, and I think it's a pretty good disco single. Number 11, and by the way, thanks Colin for pointing out some of these songs to me, because I'd missed them off my posting on Facebook recently, where I posted my top 5, and some people have suggested other stuff which I listened to. Thanks to Dave Costello for suggesting Average White Band, Pick Up the Pieces, which I listened to this morning. Pretty good. Didn't quite make the top 20, but thanks for that. Number 11, we've got Another One Bites the Dust, which Colin also suggested. And this is just a great bass. The song was written by the bass player John Deacon, and he's obviously playing the bass, and it's the making of the whole song. And it's a great song to play in the clubs. And I remember it at the time being a great favourite. Number 10, I don't have in my collection, from Earth, Wind and Fire, Boogie Wonderland. It's a great single. I could have chosen September quite easily, but I chose Boogie Wonderland. Very catchy. Number 9, Night Fever. I talked about it earlier. It's from Saturday Night Fever, 1978. Bee Gees. Great song, great vocals, great groove. Masterpiece. Number 8, I've chosen the Rolling Stones. Miss You, the lead-off single from Some Girls. Another band jumping on the bandwagon, but one of the bands who really successfully mimicked the disco style, and Charlie Watts' drumming is spot on, and a great groove to it, and took them on at the game, and that album also took on the punks and gave them a pretty worthwhile shout in that style as well. So in many respects, this is a very successful album, trying to get a bit more au courant than they'd been up until in recent years. Number 7, we've got Dancing Queen from ABBA. Again, I'm not sure if it's strictly a disco song, but I think because it's got that catchy guitar, and it's a big favourite in the clubs, even to this day probably. I've chosen it, even though ABBA did make a conscious effort to kind of go disco, and I thought that was less successful with songs like Voulez-Vous and Summer Night City, and to a lesser extent the rest of the Voulez-Vous album is some of it that is disco, but that's got some great numbers like If It Wasn't for the Night. But I think at the end of the day, if we're going to pick one disco song, it's going to be Dancing Queen. Number 6, I've chosen another Boney M song from this album, which is called, I'm not sure what it's called, but anyway, it's the lead single, Ma Baker. Ma Baker, great video, check it out, tremendous song. Boney M, very popular these days in Hungary. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but a lot of the younger people know Boney M here. Number 5, I've got another song not in my collection from Chic, Le Freak, Freak Out. Great song, need to pick that up on single, and I will. And number 4, we've got Donna Summer from Bad Girls. This was a huge number 1 hit single in the US, number 1 for several weeks, and I just picked up this copy of Bad Girls, which is a double album, for a very reasonable price in a local record shop the other day, so I was very pleased with that. And number 3, I've chosen I Wish from Stevie Wonder's masterpiece Songs in the Key of Life from 1976. Could have chosen Sudoku as well, I suppose, but I chose I Wish because it's just got a great intro, and then the drums come in, and Stevie's playing that great groove, and you know, sneaking out the back and smoking a cigarette, and it's just great words. You grow up to learn that kind of thing. It ain't right, but while you were doing it, it sure felt out of sight. Those kind of words, brilliant. Play loud. Number 2, we've got Heart of Glass from Blondie there. Absolute timeless classic. And I will call it a disco song, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in a thoroughly positive way. It's a great dance song. It's a masterpiece. It's more or less the peak of Blondie, and they had many peaks, but this is probably the top of the mountain. It's just absolutely timeless. So it deserved number 2. And number 1, I'm sorry to say, I don't have it in my collection. It's a single from Lipsync from 78, I think, or maybe 79, called Funkytown. And going to try and pick up a picture sleeve version of it. It's a tremendous song. It was a big favourite of my sister growing up as well. Maybe it's a song which was very popular in England. I'm not sure how it did outside of England, but check it out, Funkytown by Lipsync, if you haven't heard it. It's you know, I know you're not going to be disappointed. So this was my top 20, how it looked. Just my subjective opinion. I would be interested to hear your opinion of what you think should make the list in the comments below. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.